Hello, Reading Room. How are you? This is Dr. Annette Feravich. We are here on day 194 of the classroom. I keep track of those days so that you can find them and keep them in order. But it's also good to know that how many you can go back to, right? You can always go back to those old ones, and now I have got quite a repertoire of classrooms and quite a repertoire of books that we have read. And we are getting close to the end of our book for Reading Room, Being Catholic Now by Kerry Kennedy. It says prominent Americans talk about change in the church and the quest for meaning. So let's start recording and let's get with it. Cardinal Theodore Edgar McCarrick. Let's see what he's all about. Theodore Edgar McCarrick was born on July 7th, 1930, is the former Archbishop. Forgot how to say that. Of Washington, D.C. The U.S. Conference of Catholic Bishops elected McCarrick to head committees on migration, aid to the church in Central and Eastern Europe, and international and domestic policy. How's that going for you? How's that going for the world? I'm an only child with a large family. My father was one of 13 in a Catholic family from Virginia. My mother, My mother was one of 8 in a poor family from Ireland. My father died when I was 3, and my mother had to go to work in a factory in the Bronx making car parts. My mother was brought up in the faith, and at the end of her life, she became a daily communicant. I went to Incarnation School, which had at one time between 1,500 and 1,600 students. We were split between morning sessions and afternoon sessions. In my class, when I was 6 years old, we sat 3 on a bench. There were 70 of us, with one nun teaching. She had to keep us together, try to keep us quiet, and teach us. It was a great experience, and we learned a lot. I went to Catholic school throughout. I graduated from Incarnation School in 1944, and then went to Xavier High School in New York. But I didn't take it as seriously as I should have, and I was expelled. That's really something. That's really not taking it seriously. I was really disappointed with myself and with disappointing my mother and my family. I'm grateful she was able to get me into Fordham Prep, where I finished high school. When we were really young, 75% of the boys in Catholic school wanted to be priests. Now, that's what they had to say in order to get into the Catholic school. Read previous dictations. As we got older, the percentage got smaller and smaller, and by the 8th grade, maybe only 5 or 6 of us did. I was one of them. I was an altar boy and grew up in a very Catholic neighborhood. I didn't really know people who weren't Catholic other than some Jewish friends. You always have hesitations about making such a commitment. It would be unusual for anyone not to reflect on a vocational decision he or she has made. I was 20 when I made my decision. I was on retreat in Switzerland at a Carthusian monastery in the mountains. It was there that I looked at my life and felt that God might be calling me to be a priest. In the ministry, you go through times when you wonder if you made the right decision, but as I look back, I could never imagine having done anything else. My mother would have loved to have grandchildren, but she was good about my decision. She would ask, "You're going to be a priest around here, right? You're not going to be a missionary." So I told her that I really wanted to be a parish priest. If you don't have faith, then Mass becomes just a symbol. We believe it's a reenactment of the mystery of God's love, of Calvary, and of the resurrection. What a tremendous gift when you think about it. When I was Archbishop, is it Arch? I think it's Archbishop. I would try to celebrate daily Mass in different parishes as often as possible. When talking with people, I would wonder if they knew why they were going to Mass. To a certain extent, this is the reason for our preaching. Preaching has to break open the scriptures. People have to learn what the Lord is saying, what he means, and how it fits into this life. Our preaching also has to give people a reason for the faith, share with them Jesus' words, why we believe this, and that we have to open ourselves to believe. I offer Mass every day. If you don't have Mass in the morning, you feel like the day hasn't really started. The greatest gift we've ever received from the Lord is Jesus. He sent his Son to be like us in all things except sin. The Father wants us to know he understands our lives and sent his Son to be one of us. Your whole life should be moved by prayer. I remember St. Vincent de Paul saying that it is always an insult to the poor to give them anything, but if you do, do it with love and they will forgive you. It is a great line. So when you give with love. Catholic social justice teaching is based on so much around human dignity and was very much the key to the teaching of Pope John Paul II. To believe that God is love and that he cares for us is to recognize the dignity of the human person. I have never forgotten that. That has been a motivation in my life. It was so good to hear the Holy Father say that you cannot be fully Catholic if you are just faithful to the liturgy and faithful to the doctrine. The doctrine, the liturgy, and praying together demand that you work on the inequalities and the disappointments of our times, that all people have a right to live and beyond that, a right to a decent life. I don't believe you can be authentically Catholic without being committed to the social doctrine of the church. When I was in grammar school, we had these little boxes to help the poor. That was good, but that is half of it. The other half is to find out why there are so many poor people and how we can do something to help them. I've tried to be involved in third world issues to make sure that today's globalization is with a conscience. You can't be an authentic Catholic unless you're committed to the right to life. And this right is more than just being born. It involves the right to grow, to be educated, to have a family, to exercise your dignity, to work for a living, and to make a contribution to society. You can't forget about people once they are born. If I were elected Pope, I would resign right away, and get a good guy in there. We've had great popes, and Pope Benedict XVI is no exception. He's so anxious to serve the Lord, to follow his predecessor to whom he loved so much. The secret of Pope Benedict XVI is that he's truly a very humble man. He doesn't want to be John Paul II. He wants to be Pope Benedict. And to do that, God is telling him to do, and to do what God is telling him to do. The humility and holiness of this Holy Father is overwhelming. He's brilliant, and he's so clear. He's trying to get us all back to our roots. But he resigned, which may be exactly what he should have done, what Pope should do after a certain term. I would do the same thing, but not as effectively because I'm not as smart as or as holy. What the church needs today is faith. This Holy Father is very concerned about Europe, as all of us are, because it seems to be drifting away. Europe needs that new evangelism. We have to rebuild it. Once we get back to our roots in faith, from there we build charity. Charity is about the poor, about the social doctrine of the church. Charity without faith isn't going to happen. Without faith, it's just philanthropy. If I make it, heaven for me is that I'm going to be with the Lord and at peace. That's where we all need to be as we go through all the challenges and concerns of our lives. We worry about ourselves, our families, our friends, peace in the world, people who are poor, and the future. And heaven will be able to say, Lord, thank you for letting me in, for taking all these worries from me and allowing me to be in peace. There will be no more pain, no more tears. There is a hell. I hope there aren't too many people going there. I hope that the God who loves us will find a moment for each one of us to say, I did wrong and I'm sorry. I hope that the God who loves us will find a moment for each one of us to say, I did wrong and I'm sorry. It's not that I feel like I've done wrong and that doesn't make me tearful. It's that that's what you hope. That he will find a moment for us to say, I did wrong. Not be yelling at us. Not be thinking of our punishment. Not be trying to swindle out some confession, right? But just give us a minute to say, I did wrong and I'm sorry. There are evil spirits in the world, but we have hope that there'll always be, for everybody, even the worst of us, a moment when the Lord will say, tell me, do you really not love me? And the answer will be, I love you, and I'm sorry. It's funny because I don't know. I feel like I'm done saying I'm sorry. Just I love you. Just I love you. I really try to live my life as close to God as I can because I cannot take sometimes the thought of the courage it takes to say those words like that, right? I'm going to read another one. Thomas S. Monahan. He looks like that other dude over here, Butler. Thomas S. Monahan, March 25th, 1937, is the founder of Domino's Pizza, Michigan. The former owner of the Detroit Tigers baseball franchise and the founder of Ave Maria University. Here he is, folks. Tom Monahan. His is kind of short. Let's see what he has to say. My father died when I was nearly 5 years old and was my favorite person, and I feel confident that he went to heaven. After that, I spent 2 years at the home of a German couple. They were very strict and fairly mean. Spotless house, argued constantly in German. I asked them one time, why don't you go to church? Why don't we go to church? They said very clearly, because only bad people go to church. I was 6 years old and I didn't buy that. My mother took me out of there so I would be raised as a Catholic, which she really got in spades because I was basically brought up in a convent. So that's interesting. You don't explain a whole lot going on there when there's a whole lot going on there. I was at St. Joseph's Orphanage for 6 years until I was 12. There was about 8 sisters, 50 boys, and a priest living in this great big Victorian mansion. St. Joseph's was very strict. We were taught to make sure that guy didn't call. Hold on. I mean, this is kind of like what I feel a little bad about. All right, no calls. All right, no problem. Because I heard the ding over here. I'm just saying. So St. Joseph's was very strict. We were taught about God all day long. In the 3rd grade, I went to a parochial school. Sister Ladislaus was like a Marine Corps drill instructor. Everything was by the numbers. My number was 25. We had to do everything in a certain way, and if you did things out of order, you got in trouble. My last couple of years there, I had the honor of cleaning the chapel. I attribute a lot of my faith to the fact that I spent so much time before the Blessed Sacrament. We had prayers when we got up in the morning, went to Mass every day, had benediction every evening, and more prayers every night before we went to bed. Every room had religious pictures and statues. I hated it, but I knew down deep it was good for me. I don't know if I ever felt distant from the church. It was ingrained in me. I understood that I was created by God and for God, and He established the church, and He set in place commandments we were supposed to follow. I had less inclination than anybody in the world to follow them, but I knew that I should. I always felt that the most important thing in my life was to be a good Catholic. When I got out of the orphanage, I kind of went wild. I went from almost a prison-like atmosphere to unlimited access to everything. But all through those years, except for a short period of time in the Marine Corps, I never missed Mass on Sunday. I never thought I'd marry a woman who wasn't Catholic, but I met my wife and fell in love with her. She was everything I wanted in a woman: beautiful, wholesome, sincere, and down to earth. I had no doubt that when she actually got instructions in the faith, she would convert. She readily agreed to raise the kids Catholic and to send them to Catholic school. While she hasn't converted, she does go to Mass with me on Sundays. Some people say she'll convert the day after I'm dead. Now I say at least 6 rosaries a day, and I learned this from Mother Teresa. She had her sisters say rosaries whenever they were not doing anything else. So they were never wasting time. If I'm waiting in line or in traffic, I say the rosaries because I feel I'm doing something God wants me to do. I just do not compute with that, not one single bit. Not one single bit. No. I just think that there are so many more things to be doing with our minds than doing something that is like a repetitive chant that becomes like a repetitive chant. I just feel very strongly about that. It's in Scripture, and I think that that's where Catholics have gone astray with not igniting their parishioners. When you got nothing else to do, that's when you chant. I just don't buy any of it, but it's I can relate to what you're saying, Monahan. In some ways, I was never that Catholic. We were never that Catholic. I go to Mass every day, and I also say the Divine Office every morning and evening. I don't even know what that is, right? See, that to me is just white noise. All you're doing with your brain and your religion and your belief, I'm sorry, well, he died. But it is just white noise is what you're doing. You also say the Divine Office every morning and Mass every single day. I mean, I'm not saying Mass every single day is bad at all if you're getting something from the sermon. I listen to a sermon every single day. That's something. I listen to teachings every single day. I remember Jesus' death every single day by eating his body and drinking his blood. Does not compute. I say a prayer before every meeting and before I give a talk. That I do agree with. And before I give a talk, I try to remember to say a prayer to the Holy Spirit to guide me because I never read my speeches. I also pray before every meal. I've also liked Thy Kingdom Come and Our Father. I think everything should be for His kingdom and not mine. I don't always live by it, but I try and know I should. At St. Joseph's, we learned that there is good and evil. We learned what the commandments were and what types of sins were under each commandment. I wanted to avoid the bad things. The Catholic education of my children's generation was very different. I'm disappointed that I sent my kids to Catholic schools because they tend to undermine the faith rather than strengthen it. They've started saying, well, maybe it's not a sin, it's your conscience. Did they really start saying that? I don't remember that. My vision for Ave Maria is to be the best Catholic university we can be. It's the best way I know to accomplish my main goal in life, which is to help as many people as possible get to heaven and me along with them. It seems like it's a maze even when you put it that way. I just get as many people as possible to get to heaven. What's the ingredients to that, right? You know what I mean? And it's like, I want to help as many people enjoy their lives in a productive Christian way. I want people to be more Christ-like. We want this to be like a Catholic Princeton. Our 20-year goal, oh really? Our 20-year goal is for Ave Maria to have 5,500 students, 4,000 undergraduate with SAT scores averaging 1,400, blah, 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 blah. One of the largest clubs on campus is the Chastity Club, and it was started by the students. Another popular club is the Pro-Life Club. More than half of our students go to daily mass. As far as I know from talking to students, there's not a single one who doesn't go to mass on Sunday, assuming he or she is Catholic. About 98% of the kids are Catholic, and we have had a few come here and convert while here. So the whole environment is reinforcing the faith. Or reinforcing the force. All of our faculty who are Catholics are good Catholics. Personally, I'd rather have a faculty member who's not Catholic, but with our mission, than have a mediocre Catholic. We get very orthodox theologians. The students have to take theology. My definition of a good Catholic is someone who, if he died right now, wouldn't go to hell. That is someone in the state of grace. That's a good Catholic to you? How about a definition? How about some behavior? He'd go to purgatory or heaven. And of course, you have to, that gives me no clue. That's like, who knows? Who knows? But I do know the consequences. Purgatory or heaven. Or hell. And of course, you have to make a good confession. What the fuck? Catholic guilt is one of those criticisms of liberal Catholics about the Catholic Church. I think a certain amount of guilt is good. No, that's not what liberal Catholics criticize. They criticize the pedophilia. Pay attention. Pay attention. You go to confession and you don't have guilt anymore. Something happened to you, Tom Monahan. Catholicism was never a barrier to my business. When I first started, I had a little conscience issue of whether I should be open on Sundays. I never believed in shopping on Sundays. It was the busiest day of the week because they didn't serve meals in the dorms on Sundays. So I asked several priests and others whom I respected, and they said, there's nothing wrong with it. People ask me all the time, how can you, and you know what? What is wrong with your own ability to not squirm out of something by asking a priest? People ask me all the time, how can you be successful? How can you be a successful businessman? Oh, and Catholic, and a good Catholic too. My answer is I don't concern myself with those things. Oh, nope, that's not it. My answer is always that they complement each other. Do they really? Being a Catholic means being good to people and treating people fairly. If you do that, you're going to be more successful. What's the conflict? I believe in the golden rule. I operated dominoes according to it. I felt that the most important thing I could do as a businessman was just to be honest. I never cheated the government. It's a cash business, and I turned in all the sales every night. Some of my colleagues said I was stupid, but it's the way I was brought up. In 38 years in business, I don't know of any instance when I did something to someone that was unfair. Did you ask though? If I shouted at somebody, I have a terrible Irish temper and I'm a very intense person. I would always try to apologize as soon as possible in front of the people who I chewed out. Who else? I try to constantly improve myself, but I have a long way to go. A lot of good came out of the pedophile scandal. The inspection for homosexuals in the seminaries was a good thing. I was in a seminary myself in high school and saw some homosexual influences. The older kids would kind of hang around with the younger kids and treat them as favorites. I don't really know anything about homosexuality. I didn't really know anything about homosexuality at the time, but I realized later that there must have been some same-sex attraction going on there. The church teaches that abortion is always wrong. It's never right to directly kill an innocent person, even if a supposed good result is foreseen. In this belief, the church doesn't say that a baby's life is more important than the mother's, but that they're equal and that one may never directly kill either one of them. I believe in whatever the church thinks because that's also what God thinks. But what if the church changes their mind? Does God? This sounds so like jellyfish. And who am I to argue with God? You certainly do not. Also, there are many stories about wonderful things that have happened to people who were born and who are going to be aborted. With regard to death, I believe what the church teaches, that our souls live forever. We ultimately either go to heaven or hell. If I'm lucky, I'll go to purgatory, which the church teaches is a place of purification and preparation for heaven. I just don't believe in this concept of heaven. I believe heaven is here on earth, and we better get our shit together and clean it up so it looks more like heaven. Everybody's trying to describe heaven. Maybe they can't. I think I just did. Maybe they can't because it's beyond description. Christ says it's something so much better than anything we can imagine. I don't think those are his words found in Scripture. I'll accept that because I'm sure my limited idea of heaven pales in comparison to Christ's heaven. I would be living in a Frank Lloyd Wright house and I'd have all these virgins in there. What is the matter with you? What is the matter with you? I see pedophilia. I don't know why you would say that. Because virgins are young. God's heaven is a lot more meaningful and joyous than anything I could imagine. So why try to define heaven? Because I'm incapable. Hell is suffering worse than anything we can imagine on this earth. No, I think that there are some people who can imagine the suffering of hell. It might be one of those virgins in a Frank Lloyd Wright house with you. As far as educating, I want to make darn sure I don't wind up there. It's just like a mystery to you. It just sounds like it's a mystery to you, Monahan. If I were Pope, I'd be very scared. I'd be scared. If he were Pope, I'd be scared. That's not what it says. If I were Pope, I'd be very careful to select faithful bishops. Sheeple people. And I'd work to help Catholic education. As far as educating the faithful, I'd probably change some things back to the way they used to be. For example, when the hierarchy changed the obligation of not eating meat on Fridays throughout the year, they said that they encouraged us to still refrain from having meat, but it's not an obligation anymore. I'd change this back. Well, at least you focus on those things that are most important in the church. Because I think Catholics need some things that remind them that they're Catholics. A lot of people I know, when they see the words peace and justice, are skeptical. Those programs are often thought of as warm and fuzzy, almost Protestant. A serious Catholic should be concentrating on saving the soul. I know the Immokalee farm workers live near our campus. Some people see their mission as doing social justice work. Ours here at Ave Maria is more spiritual. Maybe we can start a program to help save their souls so they'll go to heaven. Have you ever heard of anything more white supremacist, patronizing than that? Arrogant, patronizing than that? Yeah, poor Benitez, right? Poor Benitez. All that good work you're doing, Lucas Benitez, and you can't go to heaven. Oh, you just need the help of that son of a bitch. Do you go to Mass every Sunday? It's a mortal sin to skip Mass on Sundays without a legitimate reason. You have to go to confession for that. It's another mortal sin to accept the Eucharist if you've committed a mortal sin and not confessed it. That's how he ends it. He sounds like he wrote, and he's a third grader. Monahan sounds like he's a third grader. This is Dr. Annette Feravich. When we come back, we are going to hear what Mary Jo Bain has to say. Mary Jo Bain, who looks something like Sister Clarita from St. Michael's School. There she is. And that's what we will do now that when we come back from our 4 days off. We're all done with our 3 days on. I sure do love our new schedule. I say that every time I do our new schedule. I am filled with just the envy of not having to work entirely 40-hour weeks. And plus, as a teacher, holy smokes, right? Dr. Annette Feravich, thanks for joining me here on day 194 in the classroom, May 15th. See you back after our 4 days off. Hope I've given you stuff to talk about and think about. I think I have, and if you think I haven't, you're not paying attention. That was supposed to be a smoother transition.